They called 1967, the year before they killed King, the long, hot summer. And one of the reasons they had to kill Dr. King the next year, one of the reasons they had to kill Dr. King the next year, one of the reasons they had to kill Dr. King the next year is because Malcolm was dead. So all the youth who followed Malcolm was now looking to King. The Black Panthers was just getting started. The Black Panthers was just getting started, but Dr. King was already established. So all the youth who followed Malcolm were now looking towards King. So Dr. King go and visit the most honorable Marcus Garvey grave in Jamaica. Dr. King goes to Jamaica and visits the grave of the greatest organizer in modern history, His Excellency, the most honorable Marcus Garvey. He comes back from Garvey land. Dr. King comes back from Garvey land and he starts sounding like Marcus Garvey. Listen to Dr. King last year. Listen to the Dr. King of 68. Listen to the Dr. King of the late 67s. That was Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X channeling through Dr. King. That was Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X channeling through Dr. King. And you had all these youth who was rebelling against the white power structure in 1967, 159 different black race riots. The government was afraid that Dr. King was going to mobilize all these black youth. 169 cities, the government was afraid that Dr. King was going to mobilize these youth. And that's why Dr. King had to go. He was the Black Messiah. He was the Black Messiah that J. Edgar Hoover and the CIA and the FBI could not let happen. And that's why they had to kill Fred Hampton the year after they killed King. That's why they had to kill Fred Hampton the year after they killed King. That's why they had to kill Fred Hampton the year after they killed King. Because once they killed King, Fred Hampton was next. And Fred Hampton has just gotten elected by the Central Committee of the Black Panther Party to be the national spokesman at 21 years old. Fred Hampton was going to be the national spokesman. So they killed Malcolm, killed King, then they had to kill Fred. Why? Because they didn't want the rebellious spirit of African youth to get leadership. They didn't want us to organize the rebellious energy of black youth. They didn't want us to organize the rebellious energy of black youth. They didn't want us to organize the rebellious energy of black youth. Now pay attention to what happens next. During 1967, 2,100 injured, 11,000 arrested. 2,100 injured, 11,000 arrested. Lyndon Baines Johnson said, I got to do something about the black revolt. We killed Malcolm and they still at it. We killed Malcolm and they still at it. We killed Malcolm and Malcolm's spirit went into the youth in the inner cities and they rebelling all over the place. They rebelling all over the place. We got King running around sounding like Garvey and Malcolm. We got Huey and Bobby Seale running around on the West Coast. We got to do something about this. And in retrospect, brothers and sisters, I wish the Black Panther Party could have united with Dr. King on some level. In retrospect, I wish the Black Panther Party could have united with King on some level. On some level, I wish they could have been able to achieve a degree of operational unity, because if Dr. King and Huey and Bobby could have just united on a certain level, it would have made Dr. King more legitimate to the grassroots, and it would have made the Panther Party more legitimate to the bourgeois Negroes, just enough to get some things done. See, Malcolm and King were going to come together. Malcolm X and Dr. King were going to come together. This is why Malcolm had to die on February the 21st. This is why Malcolm had to die on February the 21st. Because Malcolm had met with Coretta Scott King. Malcolm X went south and met with Queen Mother Coretta a few weeks before Malcolm died. Dr. King was in jail, and through Coretta Scott King, Malcolm and Martin were going to come together. Malcolm was going to run the North. Dr. King was going to run the South. Malcolm was going to run the North. Dr. King was going to run the South. And they couldn't let Malcolm and Martin come together, so Malcolm had to die on February the 21st. For number one, he had to die before King got a chance to connect with him. They needed Malcolm dead before King had a chance to connect with him. Number two, Malcolm was supposed to keynote a Third World Revolutionary Leaders Conference outside the country with Che Guevara. Malcolm was supposed to keynote a Third World Revolutionary Leaders Conference with Che Guevara. Malcolm X in the spring of '65 was supposed to keynote a Revolutionary Leaders Conference with Che Guevara. Okay? And the third reason Malcolm had to go, according to all the research I've got, was some of his enemies within his former organization needed him dead before Savior's Day the following week. According to the research, all due respect, some members in his former organization needed him dead before Savior's Day the following week. I'm going to leave it at that. Now, on July 28th, 1967, Lyndon Baines Johnson commissions a National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders. On July 28th, 1967, Lyndon Baines Johnson commissions a National Advisory on Civil Disorders, popularly known as the Kerner Commission, to create the study of the causes of the 1967 riots. This is important, brothers and sisters, to understand why Dr. King was murdered. This is important, brothers and sisters, in order to understand why Dr. King was murdered. This is important, brothers and sisters, in order to understand why Dr. King was murdered. The Kerner Commission pissed President LBJ off. The Kerner Commission actually undermined the white power structure. If you haven't read the Kerner Commission, order it right now. Get on Amazon and order a copy of the 1967 National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders. The book is like 500 pages. You got to read it. They told the truth, brothers and sisters. That commission that LBJ put together, he didn't think they were going to tell the truth. They told the truth. And that report concluded that the racism in America, the ghetto, they said the ghettos of America and the conditions that gave forth to the 1967 riot was created by white people, perpetuated by white people, and maintained by white people. Get the Kerner, get the report. They said the riots in Detroit and the riots in Newark and the riots in the other 159 cities was created by the white folks. White people created the conditions, poverty, unemployment, drugs, police brutality, lack of opportunity. They said the government created it. The government perpetuated it. The government maintained it. Guess what? LBJ never acknowledged the Kerner Commission. President Lyndon Baines Johnson was pissed off, and if I'm not mistaken, he fired some of the commissioners on the report because he didn't expect them to tell the truth. The Kerner report basically said white supremacy caused them riots in 1967. The Kerner report basically said white supremacy created the riots of 1967. And guess what? It's a government document. The Kerner Commission is a government document. So let me ask y'all a question. How you doing, wifey Octavia? That's my Facebook wifey. Everybody say good morning to Sister Octavia Carter. That's my Facebook wifey. But check this out. The Kerner Commission report is an official U.S. government document, right? The Kerner report is an official U.S. government document. So can I ask you a question? If the Kerner report is an official U.S. government document, if the Kerner report is an official U.S. government document, can you help me understand why President Obama never refers to it when dealing with the problems affecting black people? Why didn't Bill Clinton ever refer to the Kerner Commission report for the problems affecting black people? George Bush, Sr. or Jr., Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, the Congressional Black Caucus. Can somebody tell me why there's a book this thick explaining the problems of black people in America, an official government document this thick, the Kerner report of '67, and no president ever talks about it? No black elected official ever talks about it. Nobody on the Congressional Black Caucus ever talks about it. The NAACP don't ever talk about it. The Urban League don't ever talk about it. The Black Church don't ever talk about it. You got a whole book detailing what America did to black folks and how America perpetuates it. Systemic research. Systemic research. Systemic research. And you never hear anybody talk about the Kerner Commission report. Can somebody tell me why not? We hear about the rainbows and we hear about the Afghanis and the Mexicans and the Arabs and the Chinese and this and that. Why nobody talking about that Kerner report? You know why nobody talking about that Kerner report? You know why nobody talking about that Kerner report? Because they don't want to face the facts. The Kerner report is incontrovertible, irrefutable evidence that the U.S. government created the ghetto. The U.S. government created the ghetto. It is called the National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders. National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders. And the reason they had to kill King, because with that book in his hand, Dr. King had the weapons he needed. With that book in his hand, Dr. King had the weapon he needed to scientifically and methodologically convict the U.S. government for crimes against humanity in the form of African people. Dr. King had to die. You could not give Dr. King the Kerner report and think America was not going to change. Dr. King would have took that book and used it as a weapon of mass destruction and a weapon of mass construction. He would have used that book to lead the greatest economic revolution in American history, brothers and sisters. And then on February the 29th of 1968, pay attention to the dates. Pay attention to the dates. Is that Sister Shauna Etayin? Shout out to Sister Shauna Etayin. Listen, Dr. King is murdered April the 4th. The Kerner report comes out February the 29th. Stay with me. The Kerner Commission's final report comes out on February the 29th, last day of Black History. Last day of Black History, right? You have the whole March. How many days in March? How many days in March, y'all? Let me see. Let me see how many days in March. 31 days in March. The Kerner report comes out on February the 29th of 1968. There's 30 days in March. 4 days in April, Dr. King would live. Dr. King was murdered 34 days after the Kerner report was released. Dr. King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee, in a conspiracy planned by the FBI, the CIA, the Ku Klux Klan, the Memphis Police and Fire Department, and some coons in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and some coons in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Dr. King was murdered at the Divine Lorraine Hotel 34 days after the Kerner report was released. Why is Dr. Umar bringing this up? The reason I'm bringing this up, brothers and sisters, is they had to kill him. They could not let Dr. King get that book. The U.S. government cannot let the preeminent leader of black people get his hands on that Kerner Commission. He died 34 days after the report was released. They basically gave him a month to live once that report was released. And let's listen to what the report said. 462 pages. The man who shot King was a sharpshooter for the Memphis Police Department. The man who murdered Dr. King was a sharpshooter for the Memphis Police Department. The man who murdered Dr. King was a sharpshooter for the Memphis Police Department. But listen to what the Kerner report said. It concluded that the 1967 riots, with Newark and Detroit being the worst. Listen to this quote. I'm quoting the Kerner report. Black frustration due to a lack of fair housing, education, social services, and a racist media. Listen, brothers and sisters, understand, overstand, and understand what Dr. Umar is telling you. Understand, overstand, and understand. I'm quoting the 462-page Kerner Commission report that exposed white supremacy and led to the death of Dr. King. It said, quote, black frustration due to a lack of what? Fair housing, education, social services, and the racist media. Fair housing, education, social services, and the racist media. Thank you, Yahoo Love. Yahoo Love. Thank you. Has it changed at all, brothers and sisters? Has it changed in 50 years, brothers and sisters? I'm asking y'all a question. Has it changed in 50 years? Are we still not frustrated due to a lack of fair housing, gentrification, education, special ed and ADHD, social services, homelessness, job employment, and the racist media? Has it changed? That's why we need to use that Kerner report. We need to demand that Joe Biden read the Kerner report. Kamala Harris, read the Kerner report. Congressional Black Caucus, use the Kerner report. Black frustration due to a lack of fair housing, education, social service, racist media. Number two, I'm quoting, number two, white institutions created it, white institutions maintain it, white institutions condone it. They didn't say gangster rap. They didn't say sagging pants. They didn't say single moms. They didn't say incarcerated fathers. They said white institutions created it. White institutions maintain the problems in the ghetto, and white institutions condone it. Next quote. Kerner Commission said, the nation is moving into two societies. The nation is moving into two societies. One black, one white, separate and unequal. Has that changed, brothers and sisters? It was written by a group of scholars. Most of them were white with a few blacks. Most of them were white. It was a group of scholars, a commission of experts in criminology, psychology, economics, criminal justice, everything. A whole team did research, and they went around to the cities where the riots happened, and they talked to the people. They looked at the history of the government. They studied the research. This was research by the government that says racism was condoned by white institutions, created by white institutions, maintained by white institutions. And the solution, listen to the solution. Listen to the solutions. Y'all ready for the main solution? The main solution to deal with crime and delinquency and lack of opportunity in the black community was what? The government must create jobs for black people. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. The number one solution, black people need jobs. You want them to stop doing drugs? You want them to stop selling drugs? You want them to stop running guns? You want them to stop gang banging? You want them to stop going to jail? You want to end homelessness? You want to keep the fathers in the house? Give them jobs. Have they done anything about jobs for black people? I haven't heard nothing from a president since I've been alive. I haven't heard a single president in my life. I haven't heard a single president in my life say anything about creating jobs for black people. But they creating jobs for Mexicans. They creating jobs for Afghanis. They creating jobs for Mexicans and Afghanis and Arabs and all these other refugees. No jobs for black people. No jobs for black people. When they talk about crime, they never talk about jobs. In Chicago, they talking about crime. In Philadelphia, they talking about crime. In Detroit, they talking about crime. I ain't heard the word job yet. I ain't heard the word job yet. When are they going to start talking about jobs? You have to give black people the ability to raise money so they can build their lives and build their businesses. Obama ain't say one word about jobs for black men. Obama ain't say one word about jobs for black men. But he put over 100 rainbow gangers in federal jobs. He appointed more than 100 rainbow gangs to federal jobs. Barack Obama did. And he is a hero to black folks. Lord have mercy. Lord, Lord, Lord have mercy. And then they said, you must listen to the second solution. First solution, create jobs. Second solution, diversify the police department. Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Diversify the police department. Have they diversified the police department? In some places, not in most. In a lot of predominantly black cities, you have more than 90% white police in predominantly black cities. 90% white police in a predominantly black city. If the Kerner Commission said you need to diversify the police, why are the police majority white in a majority black city? Why are the police majority white in a majority black city? Why are the police majority white in a majority black city? Lord have mercy. I'm going to end this installment of Black America After Dr. King by saying this. On March the 12th, 1968, the African island of Mauritius gained its independence from Britain. Shout out to all my Mauritius Africans. Shout out to all my Mauritius Africans. Shout out to all my Mauritius Africans. Independence Day, March 12th. But on April the 4th, 1968, April the 4th, 1968, at 6:01 p.m., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. walked out onto the balcony of the Divine Lorraine Hotel, black-owned in Memphis. And within minutes, a sharpshooter from the Memphis Police Department would almost take his life. But Dr. King would arrive at the hospital with a bullet wound to the head, alive. But he would be suffocated by police and doctors with a pillow inside the hospital until he died. And we know this because a white nurse. We know this because a white nurse. We know this because a white nurse witnessed Dr. King being suffocated in the hospital by white police and white doctors until he died. In a book called The Plot to Kill Dr. King, you must read it. Google William Pepper, like salt and pepper. Google William Pepper and read his books on the assassination of Dr. King. According to him,